Hi, I'm Michael Welch, President and Chief Executive Officer of Rocky Mountain High Brands. Welcome to podcast number 23. Today, my guest is Jens Mielke, our Chief Financial Officer. Welcome, Jens.
Thanks, Michael.
So today is the topic is the filing of our 10K, and I wanted to go over some things within the report, and I'm going to ask Jens to provide a summary of the 10K and some of the information that's in it. And then I'm going to go over some things that are in it just so that we can clarify some things, highlight some things, and hopefully clear up some misunderstandings. So, Jens, I think you've prepared a summary of some pertinent information that compares 12/31, 2018 to 12/31, 2017. And Matt, I think we have a visual on that. So if you can pull that up.
Yeah, I'll go through that. One thing I thought I would address real quick before I even go into that, Michael, is, I know a lot of people have been asking, how come the 10K was filed in April as opposed to March 31, or I guess in the case of this year, April 1. And, why did you have to do an extension? And, the fact of the matter is obviously doing a year-end close and doing the audit is a substantial amount of work that, kind of doesn't replace, but just comes on top of everything else we do on a daily basis. And, with the accounting firm that we have, when we switched year ends, we kind of got shoehorned into their busiest time of year. So this past audit, which was a full year of 2018, was a lot more work, obviously, and came at their busiest time. So things, I will say, dragged out more than any of us wanted them to. And we got a lot of questions about, why can't you file on time? We did file an extension and filed within the extension period. So we're technically okay, but that's something we strive for, is to file within the original 90 days. But obviously, if we have to do it to get the audit done, we will file for that extension.
So one thing, I'm glad you brought that up, because I actually meant to start on that note. One thing that we had planned on when we filed for the reverse split is that we would file the 10K on time. And as you said, we were shoehorned in with the other 1231 clients that our CPA firm has. Mm-hmm. Our CPA firm during the past year was acquired by another CPA firm, and there's another level of review that now goes on mm-hmm. that has not gone on in previous years, if I'm correct about that, that mm-hmm. we didn't anticipate adding to the review time, or we wouldn't have filed the reverse split when we did. If we would have known that we were going to be thrown into this extra 2-week cycle, it would have impacted our decision as to when to file the reverse split. So that's how we got into this situation. If we would have known that, it would have impacted our decision as to when to file the reverse split. Obviously, we didn't know that. We thought we were going to be filing on time because you and our controller were ready. We had everything mm-hmm. closed. We had all the information to them. It was just a delay that they encountered on their side because of their busy season and the extra review that they had to go through. So,
yeah, and obviously going forward, we will always strive to file timely, and when necessary to get things done. There may be times when we have to file extensions, but clearly that's not something we plan for or anticipate. We want to get everything done because we know everybody's itching to get information. So,
understand. All right, thanks for clarifying that.
Sure.
So if you could walk us through these numbers and the significance of them, I would appreciate it.
Sure. So these numbers come straight off of the 10K that we filed earlier. Really, I guess effectively yesterday. And I'm just going to walk through kind of what I'm calling selected data here from both the P&L and the balance sheet. So sales in 2018 were approximately $379,000, and that compares to calendar 2017 of 141,000. So we've increased pretty dramatically in sales. Clearly not where we want to be, but showing good growth. We had quarter-over-quarter growth in each of our quarters in 2018. So the trajectory is headed in the right direction. But there's always clearly room for improvement. But given the increase of 168%, we felt, at least like I said, we were heading in the right direction.
So one of the things I've noticed that you have in the 2018 sales by channel, 67% of those sales were online sales. And one of the things that we've worked on, that we've talked about, particularly on the podcast, is one of the emphases that we have in 2019 is a retail distribution strategy that we're currently working on right now. So the primary reason that we're doing that is to improve these numbers and to drastically improve these numbers. So hopefully at the end of this year, when we look at these numbers, this percentage distribution will be materially different from this.
Right. I think we're already seeing a little bit of that now in 2019, but we kicked off the wholesaler program. I know Michelle's been on here.
Right.
And that is something about, getting onto shelves. Those will still count as online sales because they're being done through the website, but that still gets us on more shelves than we've been before. So I think that's a good starting point for helping the overall retail strategy.
Okay.
So the next item is general and administrative. So, as you would expect, that's kind of the more general costs, the administrative costs, salaries, that type of thing. And, as you're well aware, we tried very hard in 2018 to control our costs. I think we made a huge improvement. Obviously, being down 43% is good as far as G&A. There were some offsets to those decreases. For example, our legal bills were approximately $550,000 last year, and that was because of the lawsuits that we had filed primarily, as well as some other smaller things that we were dealing with. So hopefully those types of costs aren't going to be recurring, but clearly we have to get through these suits, and I think we'll talk about those in a little bit, in a little bit more depth. But in general, the being down 43% on G&A is encouraging because we're trying to get those costs contained and down. Next line item is advertising and marketing. And it's, I would say, roughly flat, down a little bit. But I think what's significant here is we launched the hemp brand. So despite that launch and all the money we put into getting that brand launched, we were still able to maintain fairly flat and even decrease a little bit our advertising and marketing. So I think we're trying to be smarter about the dollars that we're spending. And again, kind of control those costs where we can. Obviously, a launch is a hugely expensive thing, but we're, again, trying to do a little bit more smart.
Okay.
So the next line item is the gains that we had on our lawsuits, and we're going to talk about those. I think you're going to cover those in a little bit more depth later on, but those amounted to just under $700,000 for 2018. So that was a positive on our P&L. The next line is net loss, and obviously our net loss in 2018 was down, as we note here, 71%. Again, something that we are striving for. We obviously want to be profitable, but at this point, just getting that loss contained, getting our G&A contained, which is a big part of that, is encouraging. So just showing a smaller loss is, again, showing something going in the right direction.
That's true.
So if we go down a little bit further to balance sheet data, some good indicators here. Assets at year end, 12/31 compared to the prior year, were up about 72%. Part of that is some of the cash that we brought in that I'll touch on here in a second, related to our Mexico contract, the prepayment that we received at the end of December. And then also some inventory increases, production, those types of things, gearing up for the production that's going to be happening in 2019. On the liability side, our liabilities are actually down pretty substantially at the end of 2018. It's a couple of things. Our debt load is reduced, so we have less debt on the balance sheet at 12/31/2018. And we also have a much smaller derivative liability. And that's something that we always get questions from shareholders and others. What is this derivative liability? And basically, it's a function of the variable convertible debt as well as warrants outstanding. So because those numbers are both down, our derivative liability is down. And so that's a good thing for us. It's less volatility on the P&L. It's less of a liability on the balance sheet, and overall a good thing for the company. So that's partly what's also driving the reduction in liability. So good news there. And as I mentioned in the next line, debt at year end, which is included in that liabilities, is down pretty substantially. So we're pretty proud of that, working that debt down during 2018.
Okay.
And then going a little further, equity, we had about a $7 million deficit at the end of 2017, and now we're looking at about a $702,000 deficit. So again, improvement on the balance sheet there for equity. Common shares outstanding at year end, those did go up. I think it's no secret that, with our equity line of credit being what it is, we've been issuing additional common shares. So, that number kind of is what it is at this point, but we're conscious of it, and we understand that, that dilution is an issue for everybody, but it's one of the things that we're doing to try to improve the balance sheet and get into a better financial position.
Okay.
Preferred shares. So I think you're going to touch on this in a little bit as well, but at the end of 2017, we had 1 million preferred A shares outstanding. And through one of the lawsuits that we filed and won in 2018, we were able to remove those preferred A shares off the balance sheet. So that's a big plus for us. Those 1 million shares converted at 100-to-1 to common stock. So everybody, all the common shareholders essentially got a big boost, 100 million share boost, if you look at it that way, when we relieved the 1 million shares of the preferred A's. So that's another good guy for the balance sheet. And then I've got a couple of other just kind of notations. As of March 31, we do have about 2,083 shares outstanding. And then after the reverse split that you've talked,
2 billion.
2 billion. I'm sorry, did I say million?
I wish it was.
Wishful thinking, right? 2,083,083, and then the shares outstanding after the split, based on that 2,083, would be 104 million. So that's what it'll look like roughly post split.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that with us.
Sure.
So I think there's a couple of footnotes that you were going to go over, and then I was going to go over a few of them.
Yeah, so I know, footnotes are kind of the boring part of financial statements, but as we talked, we thought we would go through, I guess, some of the ones that either people have more questions about or potentially may have questions about as they look at our 10K. And so I thought we would highlight some of them, and I'll get started with, I think, one, and then I think I'll turn it over to you at that point. But one of the things we did in 2018 is we adopted the new revenue recognition standard, and a lot of companies struggled with that standard. For us, given the type of business that we're in, with our online sales and our retailer sales, the accounting didn't change very much, but we did have to do some additional disclosures that we haven't done before. So those appear in the policies footnote in the 10K. And so there's a section in italics called revenue from contracts with customers, and it goes through some of what we talked about already, which is kind of the mix, online versus retailer versus wholesaler or distributor of our sales, but then also talks about where our sales are as far as domestic and some of the other things that the disclosures require. So we're in compliance with that new standard and got through that. Again, that's been kind of a pain point for a lot of companies, but we were able to do that here in 2018. So I wanted to point that out because that looks a little bit different than it has in the past.
Okay, great. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I'd like to point out is Note 12 on deferred revenue. It describes the master manufacturing agreement with CBD Life, and originally the agreement was with CBD Alimentos, and it was the agreement was amended and put in the name of CBD Life. The important thing to note in that agreement is that we received a deposit of $466,300 in December of 2018. The $466,300 was treated as deferred revenue, and it went into our account, which is one of the reasons our cash was high at year end, so it was fortunate. But it was set aside for the production for the Mexico run, for the Rocket High in California run. And we, under our agreement with CBD Life, we set up separate bank accounts for that particular agreement. So it is in a separate account. And then we actually have thresholds where we can transfer our margin into our operating account, and we've crossed 2 of those thresholds.
Correct.
So far. So we've actually drawn on 2 of those thresholds at this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
Also, when we get into the preferred A stock, you've touched on that briefly. On August 31st, 2018, in the case entitled Rocky Mountain High Brands, formerly known as Republic of Texas Brands, our old name, as the plaintiff versus Jerry Grisafi, a judgment by the district court in Dallas County voided the A shares, the Series A preferred stock ab initio. I have a hard time saying that. The shares were canceled on October 26, 2018, and as of December 31st, 2018, are no longer issued and outstanding. So we were able to remove those from our accounting books and records. Mm-hmm. And we also cancel those with our stock transfer agent.
Right.
Correct? So
those shares no longer exist legally.
They no longer legally exist. So that's an important point for our shareholders to know.
Mm-hmm.
On August 30th, 2018, the trial court entered a final judgment and order in the company's favor and against Grisafi. On October 29, 2018, after a show cause hearing, the trial court entered an order sanctioning Grisafi for his repeated and unexcused refusals to make discovery in a case. As a sanction, the trial court struck Grisafi's pleadings in the case and on August 30, 2018, entered a default judgment against him. Under the trial court's default judgment, the court declared the employment agreement with Grisafi dated August 1st, 2018, was void, ab initio, and unenforceable, and that all the stock and promissory notes issued in connection with the employment agreement were also void and of no force and effect, including but not limited to the 1 million shares of Series A preferred stock issued to Grisafi, the convertible promissory note issued to Grisafi in the principal amount of $184,300 dated April 1st, 2016, and the convertible promissory note issued to Grisafi in the principal amount of $200,150 dated June 19th, 2017. And this is under Note 17, Legal Proceedings. So I'm not reading the entire note. I'm just trying to hit the highlights that have a financial impact on the company. And then further down in that same section, on February 4th, 2019, the court entered its default judgment against Lily Lee and LSW. In the default judgment, the court ruled as follows. The employment agreement with Grisafi dated April 1st, 2013 was void ab initio and unenforceable, and that all the stock or other instruments issued on the basis and authority of the employment agreement were also void and of no force and effect. Let's see, furthermore, and as a result of that, on note 18 under other income and expenses, on August 2018, the company recorded a $654,289 gain related to the lawsuit judgment the company received against Jerry Grisafi, our former chairman of the board. The company de-recognized two notes payables to Mr. Grisafi plus accrued interest in the amount of $418,865 and de-recognized the related derivative liability, which you were talking about derivative liabilities a moment ago, of $235,424. In September 2018, the company executed a settlement with Statewide Beverage and recorded a gain on legal settlement of $34,435. As a part of the settlement, the company received 1,818,180 shares of common stock that had been previously issued to the owners of Statewide Beverage and canceled them. The company also recorded the extinguishment of liabilities that had been recorded at the time of the sale of products to Statewide Beverage in 2016. In November 2018, the company recorded a gain related to the lawsuit judgment the company received against LSW in the amount of $1,000 related to the court order to void the Series A preferred stock initially issued to the company's former chairman of the board and later purchased by LSW. The $1,000 gain represents the par value of the million shares of Series A preferred stock that was canceled. So those are the footnotes that relate to the items that are on the income statement and balance sheet that have a financial impact on the company. And I just wanted to point those out to everyone, where to find those footnotes. One of the things that I want to also point out is that Jerry Grisafi has filed for an appeal on the judgment that we received. The appeal that he filed relates to the $3.5 million judgment that we received against him. It does not relate to the Series A preferred stock or either of the two notes that we received in our judgment. So that's really important to note. We have not recorded the $3.5 million judgment as a receivable at this point in time, although we're vigorously trying to collect upon that. So I just wanted to point that out to everybody. There is a table, and I forgot to ask you to bring it, in the 10K, that's always in the 10K every year, that has our compensation and the number of shares of stock. So for those people that look at Investors Hub and all the lies that are posted on Investors Hub that say that I'm dumping shares of stock every day, that say the same thing every day, all they have to do is go to that table in the 10K and see that I've owned the same shares of stock every year since I've started here. It's increased because every now and then we have issued stock as compensation to ourselves. I have not sold a share of stock of Rocky Mountain High Brands since I have been employed by Rocky Mountain High Brands. So if you want to go to Investors Hub and look at the lies, they're lies. That's all I've got to say on that topic. So let's go on to something more pleasant now. I just got to get that off my chest because I get so sick of reading those lies out there.
Can I add one quick thing on that table? I know dilution is a concern for everybody, and certainly on the boards comes up on I started to say daily, but hourly or minute by minute basis. And the reality is we as officers and directors are being we're diluting ourselves, and it's not something we want to do. It's what we feel like we have to do to be able to keep running the company and do the things we need to do to grow the company. So, we feel the same pain that the other shareholders do, because we're in it with the other shareholders. So it's part of, we're all in it together.
I agree. I mean, I totally agree. We're diluting ourselves when we dilute this. And
right.
So I totally agree with you, and I'm counting on this stock providing my retirement. So we're working hard to improve the value of this stock
right.
every day. So when I get these angry Facebook messages and accusations and angry emails, and it's like, come on, guys, we're doing our best to improve the value of this company, and we have moved mountains to clean up the mess that we were left on July 1st, 2017. And I think if you go back and read this 10K and keep that in mind, we now are positioned to move into retail on a substantial basis, and we're making strides in doing that. We are positioned to start the Mexico contract. I believe we'll start production in early June. So we're positioned to do that as well. So all of these people that say I go on these podcasts and tell lie after lie after lie, well, guess what? We're not telling lies. We're telling the truth. With the best information that we have at the time we go on these podcasts, that's what we're reporting to you. I challenge you to find another small cap company that is as transparent as we are. I don't know what else to say. So, as you can tell, I'm frustrated because we have read all the comments that people have been making lately, and it's frustrating to be in this position as trying as hard as we are and to be attacked continually. So let's move on.
Let's move on.
Okay, on to bigger and brighter things. So on a more positive note, on our friends from Mexico, we have a document that Christian received the other day. Mm-hmm. And Matt, if you can pull that up. This is a document that we had to get to essentially help CBD Life get the documentation that they're going to need from Cofepris for them to be able to export the products that we deliver to Laredo, Texas into Mexico, correct?
Yes.
So we had to go back to our previous co-packer to get this, and I just wanted to show this. It's something that we just recently got, and that was the purpose of this. So it's another step in this long process of getting these drinks produced. So I just wanted to show that to everybody to show that we're still working on this. So let's move on to the photographs that we have from the production of Green Lotus. So today, Jason Whiteley of WFAA came out to our co-packer to film for a segment that they're doing on CBD, and interviewed me and did an interview of Daniel from Green Lotus while he was there, and it was a great experience. He'll let me know when the piece is going to air. So it was some great exposure for the company, and we got to get a great product shot of our products in there, and I had an opportunity to walk through these products with him. So we don't know what the final cut of the story will be, but it was I was with him for over 2 hours, and I thought it would be about a 30-minute adventure with him. So it took a lot longer than I thought, but I think it was well worth the time, and it'll be good exposure for the company. So
absolutely. Pictures look great.
Yeah, so it was very exciting. So I think that's all I have. Do you have anything else?
I don't. I think that covers it.
Okay. Well, that's it for today's podcast then. Thanks for joining us.